Hear me okay in the back? Okay, good. All right. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Karl's daughter, Karen. Thanks for taking time from your holiday weekend today to be with us to celebrate my dad's incredibly rich and full life. Our hope is that you'll learn a little bit more about Karl today and that you'll have a great time as you hopefully it's off to a good start. As written in the program, it was his wish that today be a party for you, complete with a 45-minute jazz concert, food, wine, and other beverages, adult and otherwise. Following me at the podium today will be Karl's sister-in-law, Sue's sister Nancy, Karl's niece, Heidi Brandon, who is the daughter of Karl's sister Clara, Karl's niece and Nancy's daughter, Jennifer Roberts, and as Michael said, jazz music performed by the Michael Brockman Quintet, and the band is listed in the program, but Michael will also introduce them from the stage. So now, let the party begin. Anyone who met my dad would tend to describe him the same way. He was the same, regardless of whom he was around. They'd say, he was a true gentleman. He was a really nice man. Or as his friends wrote in his Horace Mann high school yearbook in Gary, Indiana in the 40s, he was a swell guy. He had a wonderful smile and a twinkle in his eye. He was inquisitive, with an amazing ability to retain whatever knowledge he picked up along the way. I'm sure you all will have stories about that. And he had a great taste in clothes and the ever-present hat. In fact, last fall, when he and I were paring down things in the apartment, I inventoried all the hats in his apartment. There were 107 of them. And a few more that we found in his van later. You probably didn't know that one of the reasons why he always wore a hat was so that he wouldn't pick at his head and incur Mom's wrath about it. But if you got to know him a little bit better, you might learn about the contents of his pockets and why he carried a silver half-dollar, a dollar coin, a small stone, and a plastic shim. You can ask the family about any of those things a little bit later, but there is a display of his pocket contents over on the table. My late brother Dave and I saw all of that too, but as his children, we also saw much more. We saw a dad who supported us and encouraged us to learn. My first real memory of Dad, one that I'm sure isn't because I saw it in a picture, was after a trip to the library where we lived in Lafayette, Indiana. I was probably 5 or 6 at the time. We were sitting on the bed. I was reading to him a book about dogs. Most likely at his encouragement, I turned that book upside down, and lo and behold, I could continue to read those words on the page. Now, how did he know that that skill would come in very handy later when I was in a sales role looking across a client's desk? It's a dad who encouraged independence. Each summer we would go to Mom's parents' cottage in Michigan. I remember distinctly at around age 9, running to the porch where my parents were hanging out and asking their permission to do something, probably to go fishing, knowing me. Dad stopped me mid-sentence and told me that I didn't need to ask their permission to do things around the lake, but to just check in with them and tell them what I was doing. And I understood that difference, and that was a great step towards independence. A dad who would help and support us in whatever we chose to do. So he would leave work early to attend my softball games, or he would drive a teenage Dave to O'Hare Airport. Dave was crazy about planes from a young age, And he would wander around and watch planes all day at O'Hare. He even talked himself into the cabin of the brand new 747. And that was back in the day when one could just wander around an airport all day. It's a dad who would not try to solve our problems for us, but as a typical human resources guy, he would try to help us work through the problem to a solution. Early in my career, when I lived in Los Angeles and Mom and Dad lived across the country in Philadelphia, I'd be on the phone with Mom and Dad a lot, venting about issues at work in my new career. Now, as with many aspects of my parents, they didn't really follow the gender stereotypes. Mom would be the one on the line trying to solve my problem for me. Dad would be on the other line, lending an empathetic ear and trying to facilitate the conversation. I learned later on that those calls would often lead to some post-call marital debate. But they did make a great team, and eventually I would work through to the solutions to the problem that I needed. Now, Dave and I saw that same curiosity, zest for life, inquisitiveness that you all saw, but we saw it in a lot of different ways. As I thought about it, a lot of it seemed to be around food. That was important in our family. Some of these experiments were hits, and some were misses. Like that time we put him in charge of ordering the pizza at the local pizza place when we were in our early teens, and he came back with a shrimp pizza. Or that time that Mom went to Florida to visit her parents, leaving Dad to cook for us. And he tried to spruce up our salad by adding strips of bologna and American cheese to it. Big miss. We reminded him about that a lot in the years after that, and we rarely trusted him to make our dinner much after that. But the hits were great too. He introduced us to nachos, and he introduced us in Chicago to gyros. Well, that changed our lives. So even in our surly teen years, when all of our friends were complaining about this and that, about their parents, we had a hard time saying anything bad about ours. What you who met my dad saw was what Dave and I got every day. A kind, caring, generous, inquisitive, compassionate man, and a terrific dad. Thanks.
To get carried on the topic, I said just put down to have known Karl. To have known Karl was to have loved Karl. So many things come to mind when thinking about Karl, but to me, 3 things stand out. His attention to detail, his thirst for knowledge, and his generosity and kindness to others. It didn't matter the occasion, expected or not, Karl was always perfectly attired. Many, many years ago, a friend of Karl's was dating Sue, and the guys decided it ought to be a double date. Thus, I was included as Karl's date, making the standing family joke that Nancy dated Karl first. I was in high school then, and I was totally swept away with his charm and his collegiate attire, right down to the white bucks. But I wasn't so enamored with him that I didn't realize he was really interested in Sue. So many of his friends, when expressing their condolences, have mentioned how impeccably dressed Karl was. Yes, he wore clothes well, but he also loved to shop, always searching for a particular item. Like many airports in Indianapolis, ours has some great shopping stores. I was in the cell phone line, waiting for either Karl or Karen to call and tell me they were ready to be picked up. Instead, Karen called and said her dad had stopped in the Brooks Brothers store and was checking out his sweater. Sure enough, when I picked them up, he had a Brooks Brothers bag. I said, Karl, you can't even get out of the airport before helping the Indianapolis economy? His reply, well, Nancy, in the window was the exact sweater I've been searching and searching for. In his obituary, I know Karen mentioned his parallel parking skills, but all parking was exact for Karl. I would say that easily 70 to 80% of the time I was with them, he had to tweet his parking. was not necessarily a trait Sue embraced. I cannot leave this subject without mentioning Karl's packing. Karen and I often shared a room when I traveled with them. And I remember saying once, Karen, I'm going next door and watch your dad pack. It is a lot more entertaining than my book. Everything in Karl's suitcase had its place, and it was always in that place. And he always had certain things in his suitcase. A small roll of duct tape, a few clothespins, shoelaces, not because he might need them in shoes, and Scotch tape. And of course, the ever-present wine pump and stopper. I learned from the master. Among other uses, I have used my clothespins to hold together the curtains that wouldn't close. I've used a shoelace to tie something like an umbrella to my belt loop, and I cannot even tell you how many times I've used the Scotch tape. Luckily, my luggage is never broken, so I haven't needed the duct tape. And you will hear a lot about the shims. Any of you who ever had dinner with Karl knows he could always make a wobbly table. And I will tell you that over half the time, halfway home, I left my shim behind it. Karl loved to learn. He embraced all knowledge, anything from history, but really the newest technology. He told me he got a Mac computer the last time, instead of the usual Windows base, because he just wanted to learn something new. How many people, seniors in particular, and I am well included in that, have 8,138 pictures on their cell phones and have those pictures in specific folders so they are quickly accessible? Nowadays, Karen periodically checks Karl's phone. And she recently told me he had just received a notice that a book he had requested was available. The book was The Sapiens, The History of Mankind. Well, it sounded deadly to me, but in fairness, I have a friend who told me he had read it and it was fascinating. Several years ago, I received an Alexa for Christmas. When I was practicing this at home, I had to leave that out because she'd invariably say, "What did you say?" I was having so much fun with it that I just had Amazon deliver one to Karl. He called and thanked me, but I could tell he wasn't so sure of it. However, it was new technology. And with the help of some IT folks, he patiently learned how to have Alexa save him steps, answer his questions, play his favorite music. My daughter Jennifer was due to visit Seattle on April 28th. And one of her first jobs was supposed to be setting up Uncle Karl's Alexa in his hospice room. Time does not allow me to tell so many other tales like this, but if you'd like to hear others, such as his fierce determination to see the Falkirk Wheel outside of Edinburgh, Scotland, or his love for sheepdog trials, his fascination of antique cars, his desire to see crystal bridges, just ask me while we're enjoying wine and music. Much of Karl's generosity was in truth a joint effort with Sue. Things such as endowments for the Evergreen Hospice, underwriting of sheepdog trial expenses, scholarships, and anonymously underwriting the expenses of parents who had lost a child so that those parents could attend a Compassionate Friends conference. My own examples go so far back, long before they had the means for these specific examples. These are two very unusual but very caring examples. As Karen said, we all spent almost every weekend in Michigan at our folks' place. And Dave and Karen were basically my children's big brother and sister. Karl watched young Jeff learn to fish. watched Jeff's skills progress from word to reel, R-E-E-L, to fly fishing. Karl called Bruce one summer and said he had read of a weekend fishing school being held in Indianapolis, and would it be all right if he arranged to send Jeff to it? Well, no surprise, we jumped at the offer. Jeff loved it, and he learned from it. Sue and Karl visited Jennifer in her first apartment after she finished college. Jennifer loves to cook. Karl loved to watch her. Shortly after that visit, he went shopping to buy her a better chef's knife for her smaller hands. When I checked these facts with Jennifer, she informed me he never gave up the search. She now has 3 not quite perfect knives, but better. Karl Fest was his ultimate family gift. And it's so important, it has its own time slot today. I know everyone in this room is thinking, why isn't she telling about this or that? Well, simply put, Karen's going to have the hook out, or in Karl's case, the shepherd's crook. Sure, Karl was my brother-in-law, but more importantly, he was my friend. He was there for me in joyful times and in sad times, and never more so than when my husband Bruce died. He rejoiced in our children's lives, and in recent years, in my grandchildren. As Jennifer so aptly put it, quote, Uncle Karl was the perfect mock grandparent, unquote. It was a privilege to have Karl in my life, and I miss him terribly.
So Karl and my mom had great fun growing up together as kids. Mom is 4 years older than Karl, but she said somewhere along the line, he began to transform into more of an older brother role. Mom was in her early 20s and living and working in Chicago when Karl went off to school at Purdue, and wanting to share his great experience there, he began encouraging her to go back to school She had completed 2 years of school several years earlier at a different university. So he suggested she visit for a weekend, arranging for her to stay with friends at the Pi-Fi house in order to get a feel for campus life, which he said was pretty great. Of course, the weekend was packed with activities and she had a great time, and after she returned to Chicago, he continued to sell her on the idea and encourage her. And eventually she did enroll and earn her degree and even taught there for a couple years after graduating. She doesn't think that would have happened without Karl's encouragement and involvement. He was enthusiastic about sharing cool things he discovered. His Purdue experience is definitely an example of that, but a more recent example has to do with Karl's gadgets. Now, you've already heard about the contents of his pockets, but nephew Jeff recalled being at a baseball game with Karl and needing something like he thought it was nail clippers or something, and before he knew it, Karl was pulling out a pair of nail clippers and handing them to him. And the next thing he knew, he was making a comment about, oh, that's so resourceful, and the next thing he knew, he was pulling out a dozen other things that one might need when they were out and about, including the best gadget of all that you've heard about, this fabulous little plastic wedge, or shim, used to level the tippy table. He was so charged up about them that he had to share them with us all at Karl Fest. He had a gigantic bag of them. So now we all have them and can attest to how essential and terrific they are. He was always learning, trying new things, and inquisitive and curious, even about trivial things. When we were in Sonoma a couple years ago, he brought up the topic of those little plastic dental flossers. You've probably noticed them on the ground. They're in the strangest places, and why? How does that happen? So sure enough, the next morning, Mike and I were out on a walk, and there on the path in front of us was one of the little flossers. So Mike snapped a picture of it and texted it to Karl, and that started a habit of us snapping pictures of these flossers and noting the location and sending them back and forth, which spurred comments like, well, of course you would want clean teeth when you're about to hike the Appalachian Trail, or when you're doing your weekend shopping at Bed Bath & Beyond. Even via text, you could see the twinkle in his eye. My mom also shared a cute story from their childhood memory of she and her mom, their mom, watching Karl from the dining room window, and he was out in the garden pulling up radishes to see if they were big enough, and if not, replanting them. There were always fun activities and memorable outings when we were with Karl and Sue, and they didn't have to be fancy. For instance, my first trip to Trader Joe's was with Karl and Sue, where I learned all about 2-buck chuck and all the other wonderful offerings there. There were years of fun and games and barbecues at Lily Lake, all well documented in pictures taken throughout the years. There were many fishing and hiking trips. There were outings to see one of my favorite, hundreds of hummingbirds in a backyard near Tucson, Arizona. Visits to Pike Place Market, many other Seattle sites, various sporting events. The list goes on. And of course, there were numerous occasions enjoying great food, and in adult years, red wine. We all know how wonderful Karl was and feel lucky that he was part of our lives. He was great at connecting with people and connecting people with each other. He was deliberate, a planner who made things happen, an enabler in a good way. We all learned from him, we'll all miss him. His logical, sensible, calm approach, his genuine interest, enthusiasm, involvement, curiosity, encouragement, and kindness. He had so many admirable qualities that left lasting impressions on us as kids and adults, and that leave us all smiling and thinking, what a great guy. For we nieces and nephews and my mom, Karl has influenced how we experience life and will continue to be an inspiration for how to live a rewarding, purposeful, and fun life.
You may have noticed that there are a few members of Uncle Karl's family that are here today, and you felt, what a shame. Well, don't think that way. It's the way Uncle Karl wanted it. The truth is, it's the way he orchestrated it. This is your party. We had ours last August.
In March of 2018, family members woke to the following email, some of which you can read in your program. So from Uncle Karl, quote, "The other day I was reflecting on how much fun everyone had being together for a salute to Sue, and how Sue would have totally enjoyed it herself, if she could have been there. And then it hit me. Why not get that family gang together again while I can still enjoy seeing all the generations of cousins having fun together? And let's widen that net to include even more cousins. I'm still mobile and in pretty good shape. I'm typing this in Santa Rosa, California, where Karen and I are attending the Sonoma Wine Country Sheepdog Trials this weekend, along with Heidi and Mike. I drive the rental car, Karen navigates. But the time to act is now, so here's the deal. Come to Seattle for a few days of family fun. Side note, what followed were extremely specific instructions that I'm going to spare you. I'll host happy hour and dinner every evening, a time for sharing the day's discoveries and changing tomorrow's plans. And August 9th is my birthday. Singing, storytelling, and outrageous cards are encouraged, but no gifts permitted. Your presence will be my presence. And so we came to what we dubbed Karl Fest. 31 of 34 invited, only missing his sister and brother-in-law who couldn't travel, and one cousin-in-law who had to work. Ages 6 months to 89 and a half years, 4 generations. And we did have lots of family fun. We whale watched and bird watched. We kayaked and canoed. Some hiked while others golfed. We swam in the hotel pool while others played games at a nearby table. We tasted wine and gin. Some toured downtown Seattle and marveled at the fabulous flowers, while others rode a ferry boat just to see the sights. We sat around and laughed a lot. And we played a traditional family croquet tournament. Each evening, we gathered and told stories of the day and laughed some more. On Uncle Karl's birthday, we gathered for dinner at Anthony's and toasted our host. One family made special shirts to commemorate the occasion. Others told stories of Uncle Karl from his college days, or what they best remembered about him. Another family spelled out "Happy Birthday UK" in people letters, using sheepdog commands to move the kids around. You truly had to see it to understand it. But then the true family talent got up and read a poem she had written. Here is Ode to Karl by Jessie Wright from Generation 3. An ode to Karl and all that you are, while family is gathered from both near and far. We're all here together in the Pacific Northwest. So sit back, relax, this is Karl Fest. Hitmaster Supreme at Lake Barbecues. There are so many talents, it's so hard to choose. A beautiful writer, your strength makes us stable in life, but also when we're at wobbly tables. You've traveled the world and done it in style, from safaris to cruises and every sheepdog trial. Curious, whip smart, you're the good Walter White. We're so lucky to be with you together tonight. Painter of rocks, summer drinker of rosé, indulger of precisely 23 almonds each day. You've taught us about cacti and prickly pear jam, and have won every game of Trivial Pursuit with the fam. A father, a son, brother, husband, and uncle. And don't forget Grandpa, to playful Garfunkel. We toast to Karl, we all here love you. And to Karen, to Sue, and to Dave, we raise our glass too. To your birthday, to memories, to good times galore, to 87 years and 87 more.
In his life, Dad was a writer. He wrote postcards, he wrote letters, he wrote articles, he wrote travelogues, and he wrote for the Emerald Heights newsletter, Emerald Lights. As we were cleaning out his parents' apartment in 1993, we learned that his parents had saved much of what he had written. Well, I had to have those letters. Maybe there was some great blackmail material somewhere, but no such luck. But they did provide a wonderful glimpse into the mind and style of young Karl. We have his letters on display for you at the tables in the back, so you can peruse them during the concert and reception. Many of the letters from his youth were sent to his parents from his Grandpa Snepp's farm outside of Lebanon, Indiana. He loved those summers. They were his inspiration for his initial decision to major in agriculture at Purdue University. Just shy of his 11th birthday, he had an especially eventful visit as reported in this postcard home. I just gathered 54 eggs. I saw Cletus Walker today. He didn't know me. I ate 3 pieces of pie and the same of cake yesterday noon. I caught a goat for all of them to look at. Billy's coming next Friday. I rode with Gene H. on his $1,165 tractor yesterday. Love, Yo. Then he went to college, and he decided it would be really tough to compete with the kids who grew up on farms. Although, along the way, as an early agriculture major, he did learn some skills and how to dress accordingly. From February 15th, 1950. Today, I learned how to judge sheep. It's fun, only from now on, I'm wearing my Levi's to that class and hanging them outside when I get home. He soon turned his attention to studying food service and to girls. His college letters provided a glimpse into his eventual marriage to my mother, Sue, who is referenced to as Susie in those letters. He worked with her on the college yearbook, and as I referenced in the obituary, and as he referenced in Mom's obituary, she set him up with many people, and many gals in the Kappa House, Pi Phi House. So here's a letter Dad sent home from October 1951. Doug Shortridge and I called up and reserved the Rossville Gun Club for Saturday night. We got a hold of all the guys who had dates with Pi Phi pledges Saturday night and planned a huge party. I fixed Hank up with a Gary girl, Susie Lowe. First mention of her, 1951. Then just a year later, fall of 1952, she was seriously in the running. Again from Karl, Tuesday night, I decided to get a date for the military ball, so I called Susie and asked her if she wanted to go. She said it sounded like fun, and she'd try to dig up a formal someplace. So we went. Susie and I danced one dance, and then listened to the Salty Dogs the rest of the time. We had fun. And as Jennifer left out of the letter, I left out a lengthy description of the room set up for this dance. You can read it in the letters. That would be the senior year letters. Look for the fall of 1952. After college and marriage, Mom and Dad lived in California, where Dad taught cooking for 2 years in the Army at Fort Ord. In February 1955, they took advantage of a weekend pass and explored San Francisco. One of the entries in the 6-page typed travelogue to his folks, which you can see in the binder called Other Gems, which I believe is over on that table. He recounted their attempt to find the Presidio. The letter revealed the teamwork between Karl and Sue. We turned off, and soon we were confronted with a tunnel. The sign said to turn on the lights, so I did. It was very dark inside the tunnel. Both of us agreed, but Sue couldn't figure out why I was hunched over the wheel, creeping along with much difficulty seeing the street ahead of me, until she looked up at me. Upon her suggestion, I took off my sunglasses, and things were much better. As Dad prepared for his marriage, he was clearly contemplating parenthood when he penned a heartfelt Father's Day letter to his dad, Karl Sr. In his own words, at age 22, he described the life he was to live more accurately than I could possibly describe it today. After thanking his dad for all he had done for him as a father, he wrote in 1954, "I've told this to many people, but never to you. no matter what I do during the next 60 or 70 years, if I'm ever as patient, well-loved, efficient, capable, and successful a head of the family as you, then and only then will I consider myself a success. Well, Dad, you can safely consider yourself a success. today, as mentioned a few times, we encourage you to seek the family out to learn more about Karl, and we would love to hear the stories that you have to tell about him too, for those of you who had the opportunity to know him. In a few minutes, we'll be turning the show over to Michael Brockman, who will introduce the jazz concert and the members of his band. Dancing is encouraged, but not required, but there is space here for anybody wishing to do so. You can listen from your seats, you can move to the tables. There are tables in the hallway. Also, you can listen from there and have conversation. But in addition to the music and sharing memories, you're invited to do a few other things. Hats. At the start of the day, 58 of the 107 hats still remain to be given away. They are displayed on the table over there. Then we invite you to wear that hat sometime or someplace that makes you think of Karl. Take a selfie or a picture, and you can email it to me, or you can post it on his Facebook page with the hashtag KarlHat. That's Karl with a K, Karlhat. Letters, the letters that I pulled the quotes from, they are in binders grouped by year: freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then on that table over there are the other gems from his youth and post-college. Please peruse those letters and benefit from young Karl's wit and wisdom. Photographs, we're going to start a screen show with photographs of Karl through the years. They'll be playing on the monitors in this room and out in the hallway. If you haven't already done so, please sign the guest book out in the hallway.